There we go. Alright, I'll try and stay out of the way as much as possible, but work is work, and you're just here to watch me work. I'm gonna get the chat going. Keep it going. And I want to see. Is it showing? There it is. Make sure that's unplugged. All right, people coming in, that's good. We're getting started. We're going to do an engine teardown. And we're going to move very, very fast on this because I'm already a few hours behind. I had to fix an STI before I could get to this guy. As I take water breaks, I will check out chat and see what's going on, but if you're looking for an immediate answer, that's not going to happen. These portions of the live stream are mostly just to kind of like watch me work for entertainment, and then I usually talk about some gibberish here and there. If I find something else worth showing, I'll show it in the camera, but usually when we tear down these neglected engines, we always do find something. Already missing that bolt, that's awesome. One thing to add to the pile. So I don't know too much about the history of this car other than the fact that it was a deal from Carfax. Folks, I tell you what, if you're buying a 100,000-mile car from anyone, I don't care who it is, okay, CarMax, mom and pop, private sale, it's worth it to spend the $200-300, take it to a professional, leave it with them. All right, this is the important thing. Leave the car with them for like a day, because to do a thorough shakedown inspection, you got to pay them to do that. Those free multi-points, that's just BS. Okay, that's a visual inspection. They look at brakes and tires. They don't road test the vehicle. They don't check the vehicle for anything too substantial. You really want to pay. You really want to specify, hey, I'm looking at buying this vehicle. I need to buy somebody's time. for an hour or so to have them shake it down and let me know what are some underlying potential causes with this engine. And that inspection, at least for me, will entail auditing the Carfax on the vehicle and letting you know if there was any gap in service, like an oil change specifically, tune-ups. Okay, we'll use a high-end laptop and we will scrub every computer for pending codes, current codes, historical codes. We'll try to see what caused those codes to set. Sometimes you can figure it out right away. Sometimes, you know, you got to pull a panel off or something, see what's going on. But this poor car had the customer had said something or come in here and asked us to take a look at it, I would immediately said, do not buy this car. This car has a horrible oil change history on it. 100,000 miles, it barely has 11 oil changes. And this is a 6,000 mile oil change car. Not really getting a good investment there, I'd say. So customer is asked us, he says, well, I'm stuck with the car. The car is worthless. Nobody wants to buy it from me. Might as well put some money into it. So we're going to sink about, I think the quote came out to like $6,000 parts and labor. This is a very labor intensive engine, by the way. There's about $1,200 in parts right now that we're using. We did shoot high on the parts because we didn't do a teardown immediately. We just said, based on engines we've repaired in the past that haven't been taken care of, this is generally what we encounter. So we just wrote a worst case scenario quote, and if we need it, we need it. If we don't, we just don't charge it for the part because we didn't use it. So you might save $100, a few $100 here and there, but ultimately we're going to be using a lot of this money. He went and got a few other quotes around town. They were about the same, but ours was much more appealing to him. As I said, for this much, I'll strip the whole thing down to the block, clean everything up, flush everything out, make this thing good, do a leak down compression test, make sure it's even worth doing to begin with. And the leak down compression was good. It's got 100,000 miles on it. It's got a spotty maintenance history. These are the things you got to think about when buying vehicles. It's the hog ring on my impact is gone. Shit. Too many people are just willing to just run out there and get whatever they can get a loan for. I don't understand it. I talk to them after they get the car and I ask them, it's like, so what were you thinking? He's like, oh, I was just going to get whatever I could afford. That's not a good way to shop for a vehicle. get whatever you can afford. You don't know what kind of problems you're going to be running into down the road. And also, when you're getting these inspections, I don't want to talk down on other shops, but not every garage is going to do a legit good inspection. Okay. For instance, if you go to a place that just deals with only oil changes, well, they're only going to be able to inspect to a level of oil changes, all right? Because that's their territory. That's their market. You're going to have to find a full service center, a place that does everything. We call those shops bumper to bumper. And when you're getting quotes for those inspections, if you can't afford an inspection of a couple $100, you may not be able to afford a car altogether, because that initial investment into a $200-300 good inspection on a car, that's there to protect your next investment, which is going to be $10,000 to $15,000. All right. All right. New clip installed. And that's how I perceive it. Like, you wouldn't buy a house without getting a home inspection, would you? I mean, realtors nowadays, they won't even talk to you about selling a house if you don't get some sort of basic inspection. I know when I got my house, the realtor was telling me, he says, "Hey, there's cheap home inspections that are like $100." He says, "But I recommend this inspector because he's $500, but he has a certified, he has a licensed plumber, he has a licensed electrician, um, and there was some other licensing. I forget what kind of licensing you would need to be a like a general framing and roof inspector." So these folks, they come out for a couple hours and they shake down the house, and they even did a mold inspection too. Like, they were poking the floor and they were doing wetness tests on the slab. They earned their keep. And yeah, I had to use them like twice because they found some nasty stuff at this one house I was really looking at getting. I really wanted this one house. And they told me, they said, this house is testing positive for black mold in every single bathroom. They said if we were to pull back the sheetrock, we would probably find out that this bathroom has just been, this tile bathroom has just been falling apart for years. Like, so you're looking at $5,000 a bathroom in damage to pull all the tile down, pull all the rock down, clean out all the mold. And that was good to know. Another one had a drifting slab. So yeah, just like car shopping, when I went house shopping, I made sure I had a couple $1,000 just in reserve just to pay inspectors. That sucker's on there good. And yeah, true, you could try and use your discoveries to lower the price of the house, but most people are just quick to say no because they know that there's enough, let's not call them dumb, but there's enough ignorant people, ignorant being they just don't know any better, who will just get excited. They're like, "Oh, I got approved for a $250,000 loan." I'm just going to go get whatever looks pretty. And that's how you fail, ladies and gentlemen. Because you don't want to do your homework. And then when you do find something wrong with your house down the road, you get all mad. You write an angry review to your realtor because you're like, oh, that realtor screwed me over. That realtor didn't do jack. They did their job. They helped you find a house. They helped you with the banking, the transition, the paperwork. That's their job. They're there to just help with the transition and the paperwork. And if there's anything discovered from the inspectors that they recommend that you hire, they can help negotiate the price. That goes for your car business too. And generally when you find something wrong, or you find something worrying with a vehicle on an inspection, it's going to be a little tricky to argue for a discount. And that is just, again, because the seller knows there's enough ignorant people out there who won't ask these questions. They'll just get in the car and they go, oh, it feels good. Oh, I'm getting a good deal. And they'll drive off. So, it's just sorry to seem that life sucks that way, but life sucks that way. Now, people always try to compare today's living standards to 50 years ago. 50 years ago, we had 6 billion less people in the world. So, yeah, it was more of a buyer's market. All right, you could haggle. We have twice the population. It's a seller's market. If you got a problem with something you want to buy, the seller, honestly, is probably just going to tell you to take a hike because they know that there's 6 people who are going to come in right behind you. And they're not going to ask these questions. And that's the truth about the automotive industry. If you don't ask the question, don't expect an answer. Those people who sell you cars, those facilities, they're only going to answer questions that you know to ask. And yes, I have done some used car inspection videos for y'all. Maybe I need to do another one. Because there's a lot of things that you can do just as a purchaser. I can teach you some things to look for. Because what you have to understand is it's not that these places are shady or dirty or they're trying to scam you. It's no, they know where the limitations are at on what they have to do. They're trying to make a profit. And the way that you make a profit is that you don't do things that the customer isn't asking you to do. I mean, it was only until recently, in the last 10 years, that it became mandatory for a vehicle seller to give you a copy of a Carfax report. You know that? That didn't used to be mandatory. Now it is mandatory. When you buy a vehicle, they have to give you a Carfax report. Hey, it's Mac Tools. What's up, sir? Fantastic. And nothing's broke, but that's a pretty shirt you got on.
I got this shirt right before I started on this route. On my other route, I went into the Ford dealer and I had it on. They were like, "You try to get a job here or something?" I said, "No, mine's cooler on the back. It's got the pin up grill on it."
Yeah.
They're like, "Why can't we have those sport shirts?" I'm like, "You got to talk to Ford about that."
That's badass.
This week?
I'm good, unless those casters showed up.
Not yet, boss.
All right. That's it.
Take care, mistake.
Two. Good tool truck guy. Good tool truck guy. Yeah, so what are we talking about? Oh yeah, Carfax reports. Yeah, that Carfax reports, they weren't mandatory years ago. It's just a very recent change. And on those Carfax reports, you have to do the looking. Don't let them read it off to you. You need to go through that, and you have to ask what everything is that you see. I see too many times people, they get that Carfax report and they'll say like, "Oh yeah, the agent said it was a good Carfax." I'm like, yeah, it's a good Carfax because they're only supposed to they're only supposed to go over the accidents for safety. They go over safety. They don't go over maintenance.
Hey, for this one, did you need me to put like anything like if I just put the alignment and parts that I know, did you have like proof that it was
It was pulling to the left.
pulling left?
It was pulling to the left and it has a vibration at highway speed. She has notes on all this stuff.
Okay.
So whatever he wants to do. Oxygen sensor. Yeah, so just know that. It's kind of like how the saying goes, don't hate the player, hate the game. If people are selling cars, they know the rules better than you do. They know what's required of them. They know what's required, what information must be disclosed, what you must sign for. Everything else, that's on you to ask questions. So if you got a Carfax report, you don't know what it is, you need to say, "Hey, I don't know what I'm looking at, but can you help me make sure that all the oil changes were done on time according to the manufacturer?" Okay, now you've asked a question. They have to follow up. They have to reciprocate. Now, their answer could be, "I don't know." Well, if they don't know and they don't want to find out, sounds like you shouldn't do business with them. And that's where you hang up the phone. Don't beat them over the head. Just say, "Okay, well, if you figure it out, let me know. I'm going to move on to the next car or I'm going to go to the next shop." That's how I handle it. I don't bother giving them a hard time. I just say, "Okay, cool. I'm going to take off now. If you figure it out, give me a call. You got my number." I guarantee you that dude's going to figure it out within 30 seconds. Or gal, dude or gal. But car salesmen, car sales ladies, I guess we'll just call them agents. The agents who help you with purchasing a vehicle, that's all they do, folks. They just help you purchase a vehicle. They don't want to learn about cars. They don't want to know the who's-y, what's-its of cars. It's not their interest. They don't gain anything from it. It might help them with a short-term sale, all right? But ultimately, they're going to focus on being a number cruncher. You got to remember, these agents who sell cars, they're paid on commission. They're paid off of selling a car. They have to sell so many cars in a week, so many cars in a month, so many cars in a quarter. Otherwise, the place they're located at is going to say, hey, you can't sell cars. We're going to can your ass. They're not going to let you hang around. The facility that is hosting those cars, they have bills to pay. They got rent. They got taxes. The longer those cars stay on the lot, the more money they got to pay. Cheap ass gloves. They already broke. I need a set of large gloves. We're all out of large. And you shoppers need to be real careful now. Because there's going to be a lot of places advertising, hey, it's a seller's market. Why? Because there was just an announcement from the Treasury. The United States Treasury just announced that they're going to start lowering interest rates on personal loans, auto loans, home loans. That sounds great for you. It sounds like it's going to give you more buying power. But I tell you what, you know what's going to happen? You know how the industry is going to reciprocate? The price on everything's going to go up. All right? Because they're going to say, oh, hey, people have a little bit more money to spend now, so let's just go ahead and bump the price up. You got to be careful of that. And then also you have to be aware, too, that now more people, you're not the only one who has buying power. More people have buying power. So the pool of people that you're competing with is going to be larger. So don't get suckered into a deal that you don't want. I'm already seeing that. I'm already seeing people who are like, oh, I'm just going to take this because, things are moving fast and I just need to get something now. Who the hell cares? If you got to wait another 2 weeks to find the car that fits your budget, do it. Do it. There will always be cars on the market, okay? They're out there. The market is updating every single day. Never fall for that trick of, oh, well, we don't know when we're going to get the next one in that fits your interests. Just be like, okay, well, when it does, give me a call. That's what you tell them. I spent 2 months shopping for a car, and I didn't have any wheels. All right. You know how I got around? Easy. I talked to my coworkers. I found out who lived in my area, and I said, hey, I'll keep your gas tank full if you can help me get to and from work for the next month. I'm shopping for a car, but I don't want to just buy the first thing that I see. And he understood. So I gave that person, I think, about $125 a month for gas. And all he did was drive me to and from work. But it was worth his interest. He got free gas for a month and maybe put on like an extra 100 miles on his car. But he was there for me. And he eventually was starting to help me down the line after about a week. He was like, "Hey, do you need to stop for groceries? Like, I can buy groceries at the same time." Sure. So I didn't want to put that person out of their way. So I let them come to me. And yeah, they reciprocated in kind very well. So we did a few grocery trips together. We became really good friends after a while. But I tried my best not to take advantage of the moment. I was always like, no, man, it's like, let's just keep it the to and from work. And then eventually he's like, well, how are you getting groceries? I says, well, I walk to the grocery mart. And he's like, well, that's 4 miles away. You're walking with groceries in your hand 4 miles? And I was like, yeah, I'm just buying what I need for a couple of days. He's like, well, let's do a big grocery trip if you want. I don't mind. I got to buy groceries too. People want to be nice. Okay. Once people get to know you pretty well, they want to they want to go out of their way. They want to be nice. And the majority of them don't want anything in return. They just want to do something nice. I really think that today's today's and yesterday's generation of people really forgot how to ask for favors. Oh, and I forgot the other thing that I did for the gas money. I already let them know what the long-term plan was. I said, hey, I really want to get a good deal. This is going to go on for at least a month, maximum 2 months. So I'm prepared to give you a month's worth of gas up front. So I paid him the 125 up front. This guy's got a Hyundai Elantra 2018 with a blown engine. Hey, yeah, I just did a Sonata. Had to put a used one engine in. Have a used Honda with a blown 2.0 GDI NU engine, and they want to charge me $1,805 to remove and tear the engine down to the point of failure, yet it has... Okay, yeah. All right, I know what they're going at. I know that Hyundai warranty. Yeah, so Hyundai has like a 10-year, 100,000 mile powertrain warranty. And if you had done every single service on time at their facility or another Hyundai dealership facility, like your oil changes, your maintenances that contributed to the engine tune-ups and stuff like that, they probably wouldn't be going through this headache. But if you have a spotty Carfax history, if you are one of those people who are like, hey, I changed my own oil because it's a hobby of mine, that's cool. They understand. But now they want documentation. And once you provide it, then they're going to say, okay, well, thank you for the documentation. We see that your oil change history is good. You've been doing all the oil changes on time. Now Now we got to tear it down. We got to do an inspection and make sure there was no outside interference. Yeah, that's a pretty standard practice for powertrain. And then the manufacturer will ask that shop to take a whole bunch of photos or maybe take some pictures of things. Maybe they even send an investigator out to look at it. I did some work for Chevy, and that was always a thing with their trucks because people buy these trucks and then they just use the crap out of them for work. I mean, yeah, it's a work truck, but it states in your owner's manual that if you're going to use it in an excessive manner, then you need to be on this maintenance schedule. They give you a book, how to take care of your car. I would say 9 out of 10 vehicle owners don't even look at that book because they say, I know everything about cars. I've been driving cars my whole life. No. Crack that book open. You might learn something. So yeah, that's as far as charging you for engine teardown, that's a pretty standard practice. And once they tear it down, she ain't going back together because the engine's broken. So I always tell my customers, if you're gonna play the warranty game, right? If you're gonna be leaning on warranty to take care of your powertrain, you need to make sure that your maintenance is spot on. Get your oil changes done early. I got a few people who do work at Hyundai dealerships, and they've told me some ruthless stories where people had their powertrain declined at like 90,000 miles. The engines started knocking. They went in for warranty repair, and they reviewed the history of that vehicle, and they went, "Oh, at this one time, you went 8,000 miles instead of 6 on your oil change, even though all the rest were still good." They said, "Oh, that's enough." Another really sad story, and this guy had to get a lawyer to fight it. But again, you got to remember when you hear this story, you got to remember the people who are reviewing these cases, they're not too car smart. All right, they have a spreadsheet that they follow, and that's it. If the numbers don't line up, they mark it red, and it's declined. Then you have to submit for like a professional review, and you might have to pay for it, which you will then be refunded. But the story goes as is. This guy had a Hyundai, and I think the car came with like 4 free oil changes. He got them all done on time, and then after that, he proceeded to do all the oil changes and the regular maintenance himself because automotive repair is a hobby of his. And he further went to keep all the receipts of the purchased parts, oil filters, engine air filters. So he had a really good manifest of information. He took it even further. Every part he bought was from the dealership. So they were all dealership receipts. And so if there was a problem, then the manufacturer could pull the receipts from the dealership. So he was thinking ahead of the game, and he was in the right mind space. Now, this particular Hyundai engine that he has has like a 5-quart oil change on it, and the dealership has the oil on bulk, which means that it's on reels. You pull a reel down from the ceiling, it dispenses it from a bulk unit. And the dealership does not sell quarts of oil, they sell gallon jugs of oil because gallons take up less space than a quart, and gallons are easier to inventory. So when he went in for the first oil change on a 5-quart oil change, he says, hey, I need 5 quarts. All right. Well, the response is, we only sell it in gallons, so you'll have to buy 2 gallons. There's 4 quarts to a gallon. All right, that makes sense. He buys two 1-gallon jugs. He's got 8 quarts. He does his 5-quart oil change. The next oil change, he goes in. He says, well, I have 3 quarts left over from the last 2 gallons, so all I need is 1 gallon. This logic makes sense. So you can see where I'm going. That one jug that he only needed 1 quart from, that lasted 4 oil changes. So every 4 oil changes, he would buy 2 gallons of oil. Then he would buy just 1 gallon after that because he had that 1 gallon in reserve. His engine locked up at about 90,000 miles, and he goes in. They look at it and they go, well, you have no oil change history. He shows them, well, I've done all the oil changes myself. Here's my receipts. And they went, oh, okay, cool. That's going to make this easy. The auditor for the manufacturer, again, they're not car smart, okay? They just have a list of stuff that they follow. So they kick it back about a day later, and they say, he's not doing his oil changes correctly. We see too many times he's billed out, or he purchased the wrong amount of oil. Okay, they're not smart enough to do the math. Okay, they're not thinking like that. They're not thinking, oh, he's buying reserve oil, and no, sucked. So they declined it, and he explained what was happening. He says you only sell it in gallons, so I'm always left with leftover oil. I just bottle it up, save it, and I use it on my next oil change. That made sense to the dealer, but then he had to convince it to the auditor, to the manufacturer. And again, the auditors, they're not car savvy. They're just normal people who work in accounting. They crunch numbers. And the story goes that they weren't listening too well. And he had to get an attorney. But I tell you what, that issue was resolved within a week. All right, because obviously, as soon as a manufacturer hears attorney, then people who know what they're doing, they start getting involved, and they go, oh yeah, this makes sense. So I don't know if they picked up the attorney fee, but it just kind of sucks that it became push to shove like that. But those stories happen. So if you got a warranty and you're going to rely on it for longevity, sit down and read it. And if you can't understand it, that's okay. Before you buy the vehicle, you ask the sales agent to read it to you. And if they can't do it, the facility is required by law to have somebody read it to you, whether they have to hire somebody or a manager has to come out and read it to you. You got to be, they may not even know it's a law requirement, but I tell you it is. It is, it is, it is. That was something that changed again about 10 years ago. I think that was the libs. I think the libs pushed for that when they had control of Congress. They said that Any contract that you have to sign, if you're reading it and you don't understand it, the person who is issuing the contract is legally required to have somebody read it and explain it to you. And if they can't do it themselves, they have to hire somebody or find somebody. Because if you just blindly sign it, then you're signing away. You're when you sign a contract or you sign a legal agreement and you didn't read it thoroughly, or you were like, I trust them, and it doesn't work out in your favor, you can't really argue too much. Because then that it says, when you sign, it says, I read and comprehend. That's in the signature block. I read and comprehend everything. I have no questions. All my queries were answered. That's their failsafe. You might ask, like, how do I know all this stuff? How can I trust you, what you're saying? Well, you don't have to trust me. You can look it up for yourself. It's on all the .gov websites. You just got to visit them. Secondly is I paid attention in school. I was that person who sat in the front of the class. I asked questions, and they said, hey, does anybody have questions? And everybody wanted to just go home and play fucking video games. I was like, yeah, I got questions. And people go, oh, this fucking guy. Well, I have questions. I don't understand. Another good factoid. If you're old enough to remember, every time you download a cell phone app now and you open it up for the first time, the operating system of that app, let's use iPhone operating system because I own one, I can speak for it. It'll say, hey, do you want to allow this app to track your to, to track what you're doing across all other apps? We have that because people read the terms and conditions of apps that were getting published on the iPhone and the Google Android marketplace. And they learned, like, holy crap, some of these apps, let's use Facebook, for example, they're monitoring my activity on other apps. They're looking at what I'm doing with my phone, and they're hiding it as statistical information to influence, to better help their app. No, they're they don't have the resources to analyze it. They outsource that stuff, and whatever that outsourced facility wants to do with that when they're done, they can do. Manufacturers love that information. They feed that to their marketing team. So we got to get the front cover off now. Let's get my pry bars. There are pry points on this, and the manufacturer does make a special tool to help get this thing off, but my technique works better. Stick to the pry points. And then I always like cracking these things open vertically like this. All the oil goes right into my pan very neatly. Looks like those guide fins got a little bit rusty. That's okay. We'll get them loosened up. Just want to make sure that we're only prying against the short block. We don't want to pry against cylinder heads or the cam carriers. Oh, that engine's so dirty. I missed a bolt. Hidden right here in the dirt. There she is. She ain't moving. Double check your bolts. Look at that. Now it comes off nice and easy. Man, I say people like fight these things. They got hammers and chisels, and then they break them, and they want to know why. You probably had a bolt you forgot or missed. Ugh. Yeah, this car had really, really, really bad oil change intervals, and you can see it just in the gaskets. All the gaskets are rotten. When you're not doing oil changes correctly, when you are hot rodding your car all the time without a care in the world, that oil turns acidic and it eats your gaskets from the inside out. All your seals. Everything is dirty. I got a crank adapter for this. Let's see if this is the right one. That crank's just a little boogered up. Not too bad. Cool. I wish this stream had like smell-o-vision. I can just smell the burnt oil. That's going to be a 5 mil. Yeah, 5 mil. And taking off your timing chain guide components. Try to refrain from using some sort of electric or impact style tool. Use a hand tool, because that percussive motion, that can do some damage. You could crack a chain guide. We don't want to do that. We might say, well, Joe, I've been working on this engine platform for 10 years. I knew everything about it. That's where you make the most mistakes. I can speak from personal history. I was like that. I was blinded by my faith and my knowledge that I knew better. I'll tell you what, when you work on cars for a living and life bites you in the butt, it takes a big chunk. It doesn't take a little chunk. And if you're smart, you'll learn that lesson once. And if you have a good mentor, he'll tell you about that lesson that they learned. I think everybody's learned a good lesson. Here's my gasket remover. There it is. Right now I'm just applying a spray-on gasket softener. It's made by Zepp, and all the dealerships have their own brand of it. They all go through Zepp. So you can order it locally from your local dealership, or you can try and get some through Zepp, but honestly, it's easier just to go through a dealership. You won't find it at O'Reilly's. They'll try and sell you like a Permatex version of it, and that Permatex version is trash. And it's the same price, and it comes in like a quarter-size can. And it works wonders. If you're tearing down a whole engine, it's nice. You just spray everything, give it about a 30-minute soak. When you come back, oh, it is clean. It is so easy to scrape off. Just keep that gasket remover stuff away from your cordless tools, because all your cordless tools, like my Milwaukee little tool right here, this silicone, this butylene, yeah, it'll melt if you leave that stuff on there. Learned that lesson the hard way. So, because I was spraying and there was some overspray just on my finger where my glove was at, and I started working with my tool. And I got one tool that just has a melted plastic spot right here because that's where my finger had rubbed. See, look how easy this oil pan comes off. Like when I can pull your components apart this easy, that means that the gasket material is shot. It's shot because it's just been ruined by acidic oil. Stay hydrated, stay hydrated. All right, now I want to get this lower oil pan off while I'm at it, so that way the block can do a lot more drip. Got to get these coolant lines out of here. Somebody in the comments last time, they left a message and they said it's just absolutely ridiculous on this particular engine they were talking about, this FAFB series engine. They were very upset that because they had oil inside the coolant, the dealership said you have to strip the engine down to the block and reseal everything, when they were certain that it was just this upper oil pan that had to be serviced with new seals, and the shop refused to do it. I understand where that customer's coming from, but as somebody who has to defend the craftsmanship of their work, I would say something similar. Keep note that I did not say I say the same thing. No, I said I would say something similar. Reason being, I'd say something similar is I actually do have documentation, and I keep photos on record uh, to show the customer, hey, if we go in and we only do this, just let it be known that there's a lot more coolant passages than you think there are in this engine, mainly the block, the cylinder heads, and it is very beneficial that since you're paying us to do all this labor and pull this engine to service this component, we should take advantage of the situation for the longevity of the engine. So you don't have to pay us to pull this engine again and go at it from a different position. All right? Because I showed them pictures of a car that had a similar thing. It had oil mixing with the coolant, but there wasn't a leak in the head gaskets. But that customer agreed with me that it was best to tear down the entire engine, and I showed him the photos in the cylinder head where there was oil stuck in the coolant passages of the cylinder head. There was sludged up oil in the coolant passages of the short block. So I said, look, these are things that we can't get to and we can't service, and they're going to be stuck in your car, like, because they're really hard to flush out when they're in those cracks and crevices. That's pretty hard to kind of get out of your system. So we'd hate to charge you thousands of dollars to do this one isolated repair when we know that it's done consequential damage. Key word, consequential damage to other parts of your vehicle. Take the time, explain it. Because if it's something that has to be explained a lot to customers, then it sounds like it's something you have to write down and maybe put together a little picture book so people can take it home and they can do a little self-education. That's what I like to do. I have little picture books and I say, hey, you know what? I think you should like go home and reflect on this, share it with your family, take it on Facebook, go to the community and get their reaction. The vast majority of them, they do come back and they say, that was good information. People that were helping me on the internet, they said, yeah, that is true. You should always err on the side of caution. You don't want to waste all this money. Because people on the internet, they're just quick to just want to say something, folks. They just want to be included in the discussion, and they'll say something whether it's good information or bad information. They just want to be like, hey, I'm here. I said something. I'm guilty of doing that myself. All right, so all this garbage is taken off. We're going to knock this water pump off, too. I got a new water pump gasket. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Ooh. Yeah, we got some cavitation in there, too. This car, the coolant in this vehicle had no coolant. It was like 90% water. Absolutely ridiculous. And when you run a vehicle with the wrong type of coolant or the wrong coolant mixture, and in parts of the engine and mainly around the water pump, you can get what's called cavitation. All right. So any of you people that are like big into the marina life, speedboats, you know what I'm talking about, okay? Ugly. It's salvageable. I think we're going to write it out. And I'm going to make that decision to help save the customer a little bit of money because that's about a $250 water pump. It doesn't have a bearing problem. The weep hole, it wasn't leaking from the weep hole. I can clean that up, reuse it, and it's very accessible externally. All right, so if I did have to just be like, all right, looks like the water pump is struggling, got to put a water pump in it, I could do that in 20 minutes. Next thing to come out, this upper oil pan assembly. Yeah, so just like back to quoting repairs, I, when I'm doing big, extensive repairs like this, I always do like to err on the side of caution. I give a worst case scenario quote, and then I give a standard repair as if we're not going to find anything outside the ordinary, just to let customers know, like, hey, like, it isn't that bad. But if we did need something, this is kind of where your bill's going to go. And I think that's a practice that some shops have just fallen out of. I don't know why. I guess it's just too complicated, or maybe customers just don't want to hear the rhyme or the reason. But it's just always good to just, you got a safe quote and then you got a worst case scenario quote. So like in this case, worst case scenario is I have on retainer $500 because we're taking the cylinder heads off. And I said, hey, like I'm gonna check your cylinder heads for damage or wear and tear. And if we find something, we're gonna have to send it out to a machine shop to get repaired, and that's gonna be $250 a cylinder head. So I'm just gonna include that in the quote. But if we don't use it, hey, we don't use it. And that's what I'm talking about with just being upfront. You don't want to be calling your customer every other day saying, I need more money, I found this, I need more money, I found this. No, you should be, you don't have to be like proficient in an engine series, but you should be proficient in just engine teardown and know what to expect when you're tearing down an engine with a certain type of problem. And that's just being good and honest. Another good strategy to do too is I always have spare cardboard boxes from the parts department, and I will keep every used part and every part wrapper. I will hold on to that box until the customer has left the facility. Because sometimes the customers say, well, why did you need that? And you're trying to explain it, and you're like, well, I threw the part away. I can't really show the part to you. Well, I have the part, folks. I have the part. I pull it out of the box, and I say, okay, this is what we had. You give them a little bit of light education and make them happy to spend their money. It's always, I call it the Hank Hill approach. If you've all ever seen King of the Hill, Hank Hill is always about educating his clientele, wanting them to be appreciative of their product and not take it for granted. That's always been one of the run-on jokes with the King of the Hill cartoon, which, by the way, that cartoon holds up very well. Even though it's like 15 years old, it holds up very well. And when I moved down here to Texas to work, I was blown away at the number of Texans that have never ever seen King of the Hill. And I was like, dude, it's a cartoon that makes fun of you. It is so good. All right, now I'm going to start labeling boxes for teardown. I have a box that's already labeled front and bottom of engine, and now I got a box going that's going to be labeled passenger side, PASS. I never label my boxes left and right, and that's because everyone has a different interpretation of left and right when they're looking at an engine. Some people's left and right is when they stand in front of an engine. Some people's left and right is when they sit behind the steering wheel of the vehicle. All right. Now, I understand that some manufacturers have set a directive for anything they call left and right for a position that you're standing in. And it's just because of that non-standard. Like, it's not an industry standard. I always refer to something as driver and passenger side. Because I always tear down these engines with the intent that I might not be able to put it back together because I call in sick, I'm injured, or, heaven forbid, I die. It would suck to have somebody come here and be like, holy shit, like this guy just threw everything in a box. I don't know what goes where. That can be aggravating for somebody. So Having some organization helps much. Oh my gosh, yeah. I can tell this car ran on low oil a lot of times by taking off this valve cover, because this, when you run on low oil, you get a lot of headspace up here for atmosphere. Look at that. That's all. That's oil sludge that I'm scraping off. I can't wipe it off with my finger. I have to scrape it off. That's from running low on oil. That's from running oil too long, past its service life. All these seals in here, they're just cracking as soon as I touch them. All right, 1238. All right. So like these seals, like right here, rock freaking hard. Rock hard seals. So I'm working on another series for the channel right now. And in that series, we're going to be talking about vehicle maintenance. More specifically, we're going to be talking about why some maintenance, why your vehicle, that it comes with a maintenance book, and then you go to a shop and they're recommending these services outside your maintenance book. We're going to be explaining that in grave detail. It's just kind of a work in progress. Got to make sure I just get a lot of the language down correctly. Make sure it's not too technical, because the people that it's targeting are, again, people that are just ignorant. All right, not ignorant in a bad way. It's just they just don't know that they have to pay attention to this stuff, or they have to be aware of this stuff. They just take it for granted. Hope that makes sense. Like, just kind of a teaser on it is the one that's going to start a lot of controversy. Lifetime fluid. How many times have you seen that on your vehicle? Hey, this vehicle has lifetime fluid for the transmission. All right, let's dig into that. First, you have to ask yourself, or you have to ask the people who are selling you the warranty, can you define the term lifetime? Because if you look at the contract, you'll see that the word lifetime is going to have a symbol by it, a really, really tiny symbol, almost like an asterisk. It might be a cross, it might be an asterisk, it might be a number. And buried in that vehicle, they're going to define what the word lifetime. Because as we've seen, there are multiple definitions to words. And the marketing people, they're very, that's not deviously clever, but they're just clever because their job is to influence people in purchasing vehicles. Okay, a marketing team is their job is to influence you to purchase a vehicle. So they start using trigger words, keywords like, hey, this vehicle has lifetime transmission fluid. Do you know how much money that's going to save you in maintenance? That saves you $500 in maintenance. People get excited over that, and then they start choosing that particular manufacturer because they're advertising the keyword lifetime fluid. You'll notice that some other manufacturers have stretched out their engine oil changes. Remember, engine oil changes used to be 3,000 miles in 3 months. Now then they all of a sudden jump to 6,000 miles. I've seen some cars that are at 10,000 miles. Some manufacturers, some manufacturers will say change the oil when the indicator light comes on to change the oil. They're doing that because it lowers the cost of maintenance for a vehicle, so that way they can use it as a selling point. And then when you start shopping for a car, you're reading the pamphlets and you go, oh my gosh, why would I want to buy this Chrysler vehicle, which has an estimated $2,500 in maintenance over the course of 60,000 miles, when I can buy this Chevrolet that has an estimated maintenance cost of $600 every 60,000 miles. You get what I'm saying? Well, here's the backstory to this, and this came from marketing. All right, I cornered somebody who used to work marketing for one of the big three manufacturers. They write all that propaganda they write about vehicles and reliability and lifetime fluids. All that is written around the manufacturer's powertrain. And the powertrain has its own definition too. Powertrain in this manufacturer's keyword terming was defined as the life of the vehicle. So if a car has a 5-year, 60,000 mile powertrain, that's the life of the vehicle. And when they advertise lifetime fluid, they're talking about the 5-year, 60,000 mile. Very cool, huh? So I hope y'all learned something from that. And if y'all can't hear me talking in chat, just say something. I'll figure it out. Sometimes this microphone drops in and out. There have been times where I've rambled on for like 2 hours, and then the next day somebody was saying like, hey, you didn't say anything during your last stream. And I was like, oh, so a microphone probably pooped out and I didn't know. So if you're a frequent flyer of the channel, I usually do get a little talkative after a while. Right, so we're going to be removing the cam caps now from this car. Cam caps go to the cam carrier assembly. They hold down the cams. Hence cam cap. And like everything else, I'm going to spray it down with some of this gasket softener, so it's easier to clean up later on. When you get to the cam carrier assembly of this engine, always look for the little tiny pry points and lift it up gently. You don't want to be in there with chisels and screwdrivers trying to pry it apart, because this mating surface has to be machine smooth. You don't want to gouge it up, because then you're just going to have a permanent oil leak. And for tearing down engines, my favorite screwdrivers, or I should call them pry bars, because they're actually advertised as a pry bar. They're made by Mayhew. Mayhew Tools makes them, and all the tool trucks rebrand them. But they call them pry drivers. They just took the word pry bar and screwdriver and mashed it together like an idiot. But they're great. They're shaped like a screwdriver. They have a screwdriver type body to them. But they're hard and rigid like a pry bar. So I can get a little violent with them. If some of you are wondering why I'm not marking the direction of cam caps and components, that used to be an old thing to do. Yeah, I got a little hot spot here on the cam, as you can see. Right there. Little dig. It's not catching my finger too much, so I'll measure it later on. I don't see anything out around, but again, such is life when you run on low oil. And wouldn't you know, it's on the intake cam, which when you run low on oil, that's the one that's going to get oil starved. Anyhow, what was I talking about? Pry drivers. I talked about pry drivers. Oh, maybe it'll come back to me. Now I'm trying to remember what I was getting at before I saw that. I was talking about the pry drivers. I was talking about them being made by Mayhew. Tool truck rebranding. Then I saw that. Weird. Driver, this is passenger. Well, let's start getting everything out of here. I'm going to pull these rocker rollers off. Make sure everything is smooth. Make sure I don't have any flat rollers. Keep the shims where they go. I'll worry about checking for valve lash when we start putting things back together, okay? Right now, I really don't care. I just need to get her torn down and start getting everything cleaned up because I've already pre-quoted this car for a valve lash adjustment if it is required. This vehicle does not have the traditional nut and screw adjuster setup. Wish it did, but it don't. Nope. And this uses pre-measured shims, okay? Little tiny pieces of metal shim here. So you got to get your feeler gauge in there. You got to check the gapping. And if it's within spec, you leave it alone. If it's too open, well, you need a bigger shim. And if it's too tight, you need a smaller shim so you can open it up. A lot of service manuals that use, or a lot of manufacturers that use these type of shims, when you get into the service manual of the valve lash adjustment, they will have a formula for you to follow. I would advise you to make sure you understand, one, how that formula works, because you'd be surprised how many people can't do simple algebra. Because I wouldn't really call it algebra. I mean, it's basic fucking math, but people see hard math and they just call it algebra. So whatever it is, anyhow, it's basic math because you have to use order of operation, and people don't understand that. You know, if there's something inside of a parentheses or a bracket, you have to work it from the inside out. You can't just go left or right. I don't know. I get angry talking about simple math and why people don't know simple math, and it just bothers me that so many people can't even add fractions together anymore. They're like, "Oh, I have an iPhone for that." I was like, bro, you don't know what a numerator and a denominator is? You're a loser. That's grade school stuff. Yeah, that's just another observation. Just talking to people growing up today versus people I grew up with. When I went through public school, math and science was hit on very, very hard. Like they were pushing algebra on us by the fifth grade, and now I see people taking it when they're a senior in high school. I'm like, what the? That is so disappointing. I got, uh, you know, all schools care about now is just football programs and merchandising because that's what the parents want. The parents want to have a mini sports team that they can root for. They they really don't care about the longevity of their kids' education and their schooling. I hear stupid things like, "Oh, I'll teach them that at home." I'm like, "You're going to teach them that at home? You're too busy staying up all night playing Call of Duty or getting drunk with your loser friends. You're not going to teach your kid math." So I'll tell you this, if you're watching the stream and you're in school, you need to take all the math you can get. Take all the math and the science you can get your hands on for free. Because when you want to pay to learn for it, whew, it's going to cost you an arm and a leg, folks. Because when you're, I'll talk about education a little bit more, but without being so judgmental. So let's say you want to get into automotive repair, and your view of your life is like, oh, I am really good at fixing cars. I've been fixing cars my whole life with my dad. We've been doing brakes and struts and tune-ups. I know everything about cars. I can go work in the car industry. All right. You're not going to make a lot of money. Okay? You're not going to make a successful living. You know where the real money at in the car industry is at? Diagnostics. Figuring stuff out. Okay? Using math, using chemistry, reading a lot of service manuals, reading a lot of theory of operation. How does this component work? How does it work with this vehicle? How does this engine computer figure this value out that I am relying on to determine if this car is working correctly or not? Things like that. But I got little Billy that says, oh, well, I've been changing spark plugs on every car I've ever had. I know what I'm doing. Cool. I'll put you at the the end of the garage, and I'll hire you for like 20 bucks an hour because I have about 20 little billies waiting for a job that all say the same thing. Make yourself more useful. Diagnostics. Okay. My shorthand term is for it is learn how to read, comprehend, and interpret technical data. Like I go home and I spend about 30 minutes to an hour just going over new vehicle information, service data, or reading bulletins for all the manufacturers. Because if you pay for the service through Snap-on, it's like $100 a month. You can see every new publication that comes out, so I can track trends. That makes me a better diagnostician. Okay, I mainly work on Asian and import vehicles, but sometimes domestic vehicles come my way from other departments. And there was just one yesterday, and they were saying that this GMC Sierra, I think it was it was a 2018 model with 90,000 miles on it. So the customer's complaining that it's the vehicle is shuddering when it's accelerating from a stop and when it's coming to a stop. All right. So the customer is under the delusion, probably because they Googled it. They Googled the symptoms and they got on a Facebook thread. The customer was very adamant that they had an engine mount problem, and I was like, I test drove the vehicle and I go, this is not an engine mount problem, okay? Because the sensation that I was feeling was not harsh. It was, you could feel it in the seat of your pants, but it wasn't harsh. Another shop was trying to sell, I shit you not, spark plugs and coils. Oh my gosh. Not even going to diagnose it correctly, and you're just going to start throwing spark plugs and coils at it. But yeah, so I drive the car and like, yeah, okay, it's got a little giddy up. It's like it's kind of for just like a half a second when it tries to giddy up, it falls on its face a little bit, and when you're coming to a stop, it trips on its feet a little bit. It's not aggressive, it's not violent, it's just kind of there, and it was kind of a nice like squishy feeling that I was like, okay, well, I believe that all the mounts are good, and I don't need to waste time uh, getting underneath the car and prying on all these mounts to make sure that everything's in good working order. So this is most likely a common phenomenon that GMC and Chevrolet are dealing with right now because I have been following this trend in the bulletins. And they're like, what trend? They have a problem with their 6 and 8 speed transmissions. Um, it's just blowing out transmission fluid too fast. And they're it's being they're calling it like a torque converter shudder. So per the bulletin, the recommended fix is pull the pan, change the sump filter, put the pan back on, top it off with OEM fluid, and then use a fluid flush machine, not a drain and fill, a fluid flush machine. So you got a machine that holds like 18 quarts of fluid, and it's going to capture all the fluid getting pumped out from the transmission, and it's going to regenerate it with fresh, brand new fluid. And it went further to say that they have a high mileage transmission fluid for vehicles that have this phenomenon. So you're only supposed to use this fluid when you have this phenomenon. And I suspect it has like a friction modifier in it. And when I talked to some GM folks about it to confirm my suspicions, they were like, "Yep." And that first step repair generally gets 99% of these cars fixed. If it still persists, then they put in a torque converter because they say the previous fluid was just so shot that it just burned up the torque converter clutch. And then if the torque converter doesn't fix it, then it needs a valve body. What a life. But that just goes back to my old, the previous conversation I fired up about. I don't believe in lifetime fluid, and I don't believe that manufacturers should ever use that term, lifetime fluid. People want cars that last 10 years, 100,000 miles. And, for me, I just, I change all my transmission fluid every 30,000 miles. Regardless, I am a preventative maintenance person. I budget for it. All right. I get paid every Friday. So every Friday, I'm putting $25 into a savings account that it can only be used for vehicle repair, brakes, tires, services. So when the 30,000 mile marker hits, I'm like, okay, cool, time to flush the fluid. And I'm not checking my credit cards like, oh, do I have room on this card? Oh, I guess I'm just gonna have to eat top ramen all week. No, we're good. I mean, I have 200,000 mile cars. I got cars that are 20 years old, 200,000 miles on them, original head gaskets, original transmissions with original transmission torque converters and valve bodies. Why? Because I paid into the maintenance. All right. I told myself from the beginning, I'm going to get as much use out of this vehicle as possible. I'm not going to be trading in this vehicle anytime soon because once it's paid for, I don't see a point to buy another car until somebody totals it out by hitting me. Let's see here. Is it the EPA influencing or pressure on the manufacturer? Yeah, the EPA does set regulations for the manufacturers to follow, especially when it comes to emissions. All right, and yeah, there's a small group of people on the internet. It's always the one percenters that are the loudest and have a lot of hate for what the EPA has done or suggested that manufacturers do. But you know, you got to go back and you got to look at the photos of Detroit, Toledo, New York, Los Angeles, all those big cities, Seattle. Look at the skyline views of them from the 70s. It looked like gutter trash, okay? Because that was smog. Back then, the EPA wasn't regulating anything on automobiles. And this America, we love automobiles. Like, we've built our lifestyle around every person having at least one car. So, what was happening was these hydrocarbons are part of your gasoline. It's stored in your gas tank. Okay. It gets warm outside. It gets warm outside. That liquid gasoline starts turning into a vapor. The vapor was escaping the fuel tank naturally because it's a vapor. And then that was just getting stuck in the air that we were breathing. So you would just see this dark cloud of about 200 feet above major city areas. That was also influenced from cars not burning fuel correctly, diesels, so on and so forth. But that was one of the big lead ups to where the EPA said, okay, now we need an evap system built into the gas tanks. So basically, the evap system has a charcoal canister that absorbs your gas vapors. And then when you're turning your car on, the charcoal canister has a vent valve. And when it's safe, it will open up a valve and it'll allow your engine to suck in those vapors it captured from your gas tank. So they can be burned up naturally and they don't poison the air. Nobody likes breathing poisoned air. All right. Now to attack the other side of the emissions problem was the introduction of catalytic converters. Okay. The vehicles, our vehicles that we drive, they they always leave a small percentage of fuel in their exhaust gases, all right? If you burn up all the fuel, if you burn 100% of the fuel, you run the risk of running the cylinder a little bit lean. And while that will give you more power and better miles per gallon, running that cylinder too lean too long, oops, am I using it? Yeah, wrong box, oops. Running that cylinder too lean too long will cause some problems. So it's when they're programming the burn rate, it's always safe to go on the side of enrichment, so to say. So now we got catalytic converters running on our vehicle, and that just marks the price up. And people hate catalytic converters because for some reason they believe that a catalytic converter robs them of engine horsepower because they see cars on TV, professional race cars on TV. They don't have catalytic converters. Look how fast they go. So that means I must take the catalytic converter out of my car. Well, that's some silliness. Sorry, I set something down and I lost track of it. Oh, bloody hell, where did I set that down at? Hmm. No, 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 no. I didn't put it in here. No, it's not in here. Oh, I haven't taken off. I was looking for this cam carrier assembly. I'm like, where the hell is it at? And I'm like, oh, I haven't taken it off yet. It's lunchtime. What can I say? All right. This cam's just a little bit on the tight side, so we're going to have to take the phaser off. That's all right. So, so introducing, the EPA has done good stuff for us. It's done really good stuff for us. And the consumer will complain that it has only made things more expensive, but, and yeah, like trying to make things safer for us is important. But if you go back and you look at all the manufacturing industry for the last 50 years, and you look at what the EPA has done to help us out, oh my gosh, it's amazing. Okay, one of the greatest examples that I would reference, aside from the automotive industry, would be the invention of Teflon. All right, we love Teflon, right? We use it on all our cookware. We use it in industrial use. Teflon has a great many of uses, but during the research of Teflon, okay, during the development of Teflon, there was a lot of people that got hurt, not just in the work field, but in the surrounding cities and counties, because the pollutants, the toxins that were coming out of these plants, they were not regulated. The These manufacturing facilities were just allowed to just dump it behind the shed, so to say. And when they did that, it got absorbed into the groundwater. It poisoned the streams. It poisoned the aquifers. And there's like entire counties that got wiped out. The cattle, and like all the cattle were getting sick. People were getting sick. The people started getting cancer. And at the time, like people didn't know what cancer was. That was like a new thing that was happening. So I had a lot of people scared. Then they started doing the research and they started shaking down these plants. And they were like, well, hey, you can't, like, this stuff that you are burning, you can't just let it float into the air. You got to run it through a filter. And the plants are like, well, that's expensive. It says, okay, well, all these liquids that you're using to lubricate your machines, you can't just dump it behind the shed. You got to barrel it up and you got to filter it and make it safe. Well, that's expensive. Okay, well, the people are dying out here. So, like, also, you could do some self-education. Textile industry. The textile industry, holy crap, fabric dyes, they are so poisonous. Okay, I love fabrics. I really do. I love the feel of a new shirt. But there's a reason why we don't have clothing manufacturers here in the United States. People will say the EPA chased them out. Well, yeah, because they didn't want their local wells getting poisoned with all the runoff from textiles. Okay? Back in when you call it the Industrial Revolution. When the Industrial Revolution started, people didn't think too much of it because people had a natural lifespan of like 30, 40, 50 years max. Now people are living 70, 80, 90, 100. People are living longer. Medicine is better. But now that you're living longer, you're seeing the repercussions of long-term exposure to living next to a plant based on the food that you eat, the water you drink, the air you breathe. So vehicles because America is so vehicle dependent, everybody has to have a vehicle to get to and from work. Um, the automotive industry is not leaving America. So yeah, our cars, they have a lot more regulation now. And the the cost of EPA regulation, it is passing on to the consumers through the value of the vehicle. It's a shame. I think that the executives at a manufacturing facility, I think they make enough money. They can afford to eat 10% of the cost, but you know, who am I to argue that point? Okay? They don't care about me because there's enough of you out there who want to have a new car every 2 years. You want to have the new shiny thing. Okay? I try to educate you as the viewer. Vote with your dollar. Okay? What you say on the internet doesn't mean twiddly dicks to these companies, all right? These politicians, these companies, they don't care what you say on the internet unless it's in their favor. No. Well, when you stop spending money on their product, whoa, now they're going to listen because you're not giving them any more money. Okay? I haven't bought a new car in 20 years. Don't need one. I'm taking care of my other ones just fine. Do I have Bluetooth audio? Don't need it. Don't care. I got headphones. Whatever. Kids in the back seat crying that they're bored. They want to watch a movie. Don't fucking care. They got coloring books. I don't need to have an entertainment center to entertain the Rugrats. Give them a book. If they get car sick, they can take a nap. All right, we're gonna see if we can take this intake manifold off now. Like I was helping one girl shop for a car that was in her budget, and man, she was a hard candidate. Like, she was just really dead set on trying to have something that looked brand new with all the new shiny features, but she wanted it for under $8,000 because that's all I have. I was like, girl, $8,000, I can do a lot of damage. Okay, 'cause we could work with that. That's good money. And I showed her some examples of cars that were like from 1999 to 2005. And I says, look, these cars are in really good shape as far as your body, your interior. They don't smell. They're not rusty. I says, and the miles are respectably low, like 100,000. It was pretty easy. I said, check this out. I was like, let's get this car for like $1,000, and it's gonna need probably about $5,000 worth of work done to it. Let's get the suspension fixed, get the brakes fixed, get all the safety stuff rocking and rolling, and fix a few oil leaks here and there. And she's like, yeah, but it doesn't have hands-free calling. That's a selling point for you, hands-free calling? I'm talking about a car that we can get for cash, a car that we can maintain cheap. Where is your focus? You want hands-free calling? Just don't answer the phone. That's the solution. Yeah, we him and all, we went from a 2003 to a 2010 to where she started looking at like 2017s and 18s. And I'm like, your budget's going up. We need to stick in the 1999 to 2005 realm because the cars don't have a lot of expensive computerized things in them. It's simple to maintain. It's easy to fix. This is your budget car. Nope, had to be stylish. I lost that fight. Took fashion over function. Uh, so I left it as is. I said, okay, well, I guess we're done. I gave you all the advice you need. We looked at some cars. You, I says, you have this false reality you want to live in, where you think you're going to get a modern day car for $8,000 and not have any problems with it. Yeah. Uh, she ended up bringing the car by the shop. She ended up bringing the car she bought by the shop about 3 weeks later. What she found? She found like a 2021. What a piece of shit car. And she was just like, oh, the stereo's good. I'm so glad that was a selling point for you. I was like, you got sold on the bells and whistles. And I was like, okay, so this car has this oil leak, this car has this transmission problem, this car has this broken axle, and like, he's like, why didn't you get this car inspected before you bought it? Like, she completely just dismissed everything I taught her about getting an inspection. She's like, well, they told me that if anything was wrong, I could just take it back. And I says, cool, take it back. Everything's wrong with this car. Get out of it. She's like, but I like it. I already bought a steering wheel cover. And I was done. I said, okay, we're done. We're done. You're 28 years old and you're talking like a 5-year-old. Almost to the point where we can get this intake manifold off. Got to get this EGR cooler out of the way. Two lines of this thing. I'm just gonna let it hang. It'd be easier to just, yeah. Yeah, I'm just gonna let that just stay in place. I don't want to mess with it too much. We'll get this PCV system out of here. See, somebody in the comments is teasing me because I work too slow. I could not stream and not entertain you. I could do that. And also, I am working on a car with a lot of miles on it. We want to be careful. We don't want to break any fasteners. We want to stay organized. I want to show some respect for the customer's vehicle, even though it's got problems. Even though I Even though I'm taking some, what do they call them? Just making fun of the situation. It's not my car. Gotta show respect for it. I thought I left my fly driver thing here. Bummer. Something maybe like this. This PCV hose is just a little bit feisty. I'm going to try and salvage it for cost purposes. Oh, yeah, that PCV system shot. So I made the right call on that one. You're getting a new PCV valve. Yeah, that thing's been stuck open. Just sucking in crate case vapors. That most likely means we're going to discover that the throttle body is just completely chattered up. Oh, yes. This is probably the worst throttle body I've seen. I will get you a close look of this. She's a beaut. If by beauty you mean disgusting. Look at that. And that's pretty rough texture there too. I don't think this throttle body has ever been cleaned. That's disgusting. Trying to get this intake manifold up because I got to get to these injectors so I can pull the cylinder heads off. As soon as I get this finish this thing getting stripped down, I get to go eat some food because I'm getting hungry. I do really want to take this hose off, but I can't. This is one of these garbage hoses that the manufacturer has deemed as um, one way, meaning you put it on, it don't come off. If it comes off, it's, the only way to get it off is to break it. So stupid. There's no circlip, there's no clamp, there's no nothing. It literally says in the manual to remove this PCV hose right here to break it. And this is a $120 hose. So I'm going to try really hard to not break that hose or need to take it off. I'm trying to save this guy a little bit of money here and there. But if I need it, if it's necessary, I got one. Now, truth be told, I think I started my stream with the engine like up here and just found my way back there. That happens. That happens. Like all of a sudden, I'll just be like working in a corner, and I don't know how I got there because this cart just keeps getting pushed back little by little. I'll try and get this harness out of here. And we're gonna have to arm wrestle some fuel injector clips, which are hidden underneath the foam. Not nice. It's important that this foam go back over your fuel rails and your high pressure fuel pump because high pressure fuel systems, the high pressure fuel pump that was right here, and these fuel injectors, they're noisy. They're some noisy contraptions. I've had a lot of cars that come in, mainly Hyundais and Kias, and they'll be complaining about um, engine noise when they accelerate. And I'll be like, this car sounds fine. It just doesn't sound like it has this the sound deadening material on the fuel system. And I pop the hood. Sure enough, it's all missing. I'll be like, who the hell worked on your car last? I don't know. I was like, your car has 80,000 miles. You can't tell me one person that worked on it. Don't be like that with me. Come on. Like, you need to know who worked on your car so we can call them up, see if they have these parts. Otherwise, I got to charge you for parts. I'm also charging you for diagnostics. So yeah, we get replace the engine cover, replace those little pieces of foam. Customer wasn't complaining about the noise anymore. There was nothing wrong. Engineers are really, really good at hiding engine sounds from us. Okay, so I'm I'm laying that wiring harness on top of my intake manifold, along with all this foam on top of the wiring harness. It really helps me keep the order of operation back together. I really want to keep this in the order that I took it apart, so when I go to assemble it, then I don't have to pull things back apart again. Once you start bolting things up, it's really hard to get this foam back where it goes. You got to start from ground zero. Okay, so fuel injectors are going to stay with the cylinder head, but I need to split the cylinder head, so this has got to come off. Okay. When busting these high pressure fuel lines, I always do put a rag over it because there's still going to be pressure in there. It's going to squirt at you, and you don't want to get that on your skin, on your face, so on and so forth. It's not pleasant. And then that's trash. All high pressure fuel lines are one-time use only. We do not reuse them. We throw them away. In fact, this is generally what I do, is I bend them so somebody can't reuse it. I once had to let an apprentice go because he wanted to get a car out faster, and he forgot to order the lines, and he was just going to reuse some old ones, but we were working on the engine together, and I bent them. Well, he just got somebody else's, and I figured it out before the engine went back into the car, and the customer had it. I figured it because it still had all the OEM QA pink marks on there, and I go, "Where'd you get this hose?" And he's like, "Oh, it's the new one." I'm like, "Don't lie to me. Where'd you get it from?" And he was persistent. He says, "Nope, that's what parts gave me." I go to parts, and I says, "Did you bill out a part?" And nope. Okay. I had to have a little heart-to-heart moment. I said, "We don't work like that." I was like, "That connection could leak, and when it leaks, it's not going to drip, drip, drip. It's going to mist, and when it mists, all right, that fuel is going to be more volatile, and this engine bay is going to catch on fire to a point to where it's going to melt the short block." I got photos of cars that have had cylinder head work done to it, where the shops had just reused the high pressure fuel lines because they didn't have any high pressure fuel line training. They just did like a run and gun, stab it back together head gasket job, and then the car got towed back into the shop, and the whole front end of it was melted. There was like a pool of aluminum sitting in the subframe. I was like, "That's the block." Where's my big watch? How's the chat doing? My windshield is all the entertainment I need. That's funny. If you guys are asking me about problems with your Subarus, just go to the main channel page. There's an email button there. Just talk to me in email, okay? Uh, we can't diagnose cars in chat. It's not going to happen. Thinker, the Thinker is saying that's a cool name. He says he loves changing his PCV out and cleaning his throttle body every 30,000 miles. Yeah, definitely cleaning your throttle body every 30,000 miles is very, very smart. I do highly recommend it. Understandably, some throttle bodies are really hard to get to. I had 2 weeks ago, I had an Infinity in here, a Q Series Infinity, which really just looked like a fancy Nissan Rogue. It probably was. But anyhow, that throttle body's underneath the intake manifold, so you got to pull the intake manifold off. So you would have to use some extra tooling to service that efficiently, keyword efficiently. And that's where I have hanging around. Where is it? Oh, yeah, here it is. I just used it. Yeah, so you get one of these little things right here. You fill the bottle up with the cleaner, and then you hook this up to a line that's en route with your throttle body, and you just trickle it in. It takes about an hour, hour and a half to do it correctly. You don't want to rush it, but that will slowly wash the chemical over your throttle plate, and it'll clean everything up. Obviously, if you can get to your throttle body within 10 minutes and then just wipe it clean, that is smarter. But for this Infinity, replacing the throttle body, I do believe was something like a 5-hour job. As far as replacing the PCV every 30K, that's good on you for doing that if you can afford it. That's pretty aggressive. But then again, I don't know what car you have. Some PCVs are very affordable. Okay, they're the old school classic one, just like on this car. It's just a little metal valve that screws into the block. Costs 30, 40 bucks. Other PCV systems, like on some Ford EcoBoosts and some Chevrolet Ecotechs, that PCV is heavily integrated into the valve cover. So you would have to change out an entire valve cover assembly, which is in the realm of like $150 for parts. Oh yeah, look how white that is. That thing's been running lean as hell. Holy crap. This car is going to drive so much better when I'm done with it. Pistons look good. Really clean. Really clean. So you might have had a minor coolant leak happening that was washing them clean. Okay. That would explain why the coolant was just all water, because he was just topping it off with tap water, and then eventually he just wiped out his entire coolant system. So I wouldn't be surprised if this catalytic is on its way out. Here's another reason why too. Like a lot of people were saying in the last live stream, they were saying, "Hey, if you got oil and coolant mixing on these new Subaru engines, the FAFEs, they were saying all you got to do is pull this pan, change out these rings, because that's most likely a problem." Well, here, this is why I want to show you why I don't like just doing that service. Okay, this is why I want to strip your engine down and I want to get into the block. That's in your coolant passage. Okay? I can only flush this out if I tear it down. I'm sorry, I can only clean this out if I tear it down. Flushing's not going to get this out. All right. There's no, this area is very stagnant. And that's, looks like an accumulation, a lot of hard water too. There's some oil sludge in there, but I'll wash that all out. Now, truth be told, uh, if if the customer did have the money for it, I would be pulling these injectors out. I would be putting them on my balancer, and I would flow test them, and I would throw them through an ultrasonic cleaner. It doesn't want to pay for that because obviously that's more parts. I'm going to need a whole bunch of seals to put this thing back together, and we're on a budget. I think I've said that enough. We're on a budget. So I just suggested, well, you know what? At least I put into the quote, got him some fuel system cleaner, about 5 cans of it. So I just said, you're just going to drive with this in the back seat, all right? And every time you top off your gas tank, put one of these bottles in, and it's just going to work its way naturally through the system. Ideally, I would love to just take the injectors off and just make sure that they're good, but when you're on a budget, that's about the best suggestion I have. Ooh, it's on there pretty good. That was pretty loose. Footings. Yeah. 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 These head bolts feel like they're down to like 150 Newton meters. Generally, when I strip down an engine to the block, I like to replace these stretch bolts with studs, as they have better clamping force. But a head stud kit for this, again, more money. That's like $400. And these things work fine. He's a daily driver. He's not trying to do any kind of performance builds. But still, if it's in the budget, I'll always suggest it. You know what? But before I get too far, I am replacing. He is getting spark plugs. That was the one thing that I was not letting him talk his way out of. I was like, nope. Every engine repair gets a new plug. These plugs are smoked. You're trying to say like, oh, I got plugs like 20,000 miles ago. Folks, these are not 20,000 mile plugs. And if they are, they're smoked. Okay. I'm not cleaning them up. This isn't the 1980s where you just kind of hit them with a torch and brush them with a brass brush. Okay, it's not a lawnmower anymore. This iridium stuff. When it's burned out, it's burned out. Oh, you'll want to see this cylinder head. Yeah, she's smoked. This car's been running lean. Been running lean for a long time. Or it's been burning a lot of coolant, which is what I was seeing on the other cylinder. Again, like, these cylinder pistons, they're clean. So, again, that explains why this car's running straight tap water. Is he's probably been seeing his coolant running low, so he keeps topping it off with tap water, and then he eventually just diluted all the coolant out because it's just been burning here. These pistons are friggin' clean. All right, let's check the chat, and I'm gonna eat a sandwich because I'm starving. All right, Thinker, man, it's been a great talking to you. Anybody else, like I said, if you got questions about your car, you need some repair questions, just go ahead and email me. That's the easiest way to get to me. All right, but we're gonna take a break for about an hour or so. I'm gonna organize my parts, clean this area up. Actually, it's probably gonna be about 2 hours. I'm gonna come back on stream because I'm gonna have to clean everything up. You guys don't want to watch me clean stuff. That's boring. So, cheers.